Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a number so vast, it's genuinely hard to fully grasp. 16 billion.
16 billion.
Wow. That's the sheer mind-boggling volume of login credentials, including passwords, that have been reportedly exposed in what cybersecurity researchers are now calling one of the largest data leaks in history.
Yeah,
It's a figure that almost defies comprehension, isn't it?
it absolutely does. And what's particularly chilling for you, our listener, is that we're not talking about some obscure data dump from a forgotten corner of the internet.
Right.
This colossal aggregation of data impacts the major platforms you and I use every single day. We're talking Apple, Facebook, Google, GitHub, Telegram,
It's big ones.
all of them, even various government services. It's a stark, undeniable reminder of just how deeply interconnected and, well, inherently vulnerable our digital lives have become.
That's precisely why we're here today. Our mission for this deep dive is to cut through the noise, to separate the sensational headlines from the truly significant insights.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise out there.
We've gone through a substantial stack of recent reports from cybersecurity experts at Cyber News, detailed analyses in publications like Forbes, Newsweek, and the New York Post.
Good sources.
And perhaps most fascinatingly, the raw, unfiltered reactions, the skepticism, and actually some surprisingly practical advice shared within vibrant online communities, particularly on Reddit's technology.
Oh yeah, Reddit can be a goldmine for that kind of real-world reaction.
Exactly. So we want to understand the truth behind this staggering number, grasp its true implications for your online security, and most importantly, arm you with clear, actionable steps.
Right, not just the what, but the so what and what now.
Our goal isn't just to inform you, but to truly empower you to navigate this new, more perilous digital landscape. Let's begin by truly grappling with the scale of this exposure. When we say 16 billion login credentials, we mean exactly that. Usernames, email addresses, passwords, other sensitive details.
It's not just passwords, that's a key point.
Yeah, this isn't a typo. This is a truly staggering ocean of compromised data, with some experts describing it as potentially the largest leak ever recorded.
It feels like something pulled straight from a dystopian sci-fi novel, honestly.
Mhm.
But it's very, very real.
To truly contextualize this figure, maybe it's helpful to place it alongside other massive leaks we've witnessed recently.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Because these numbers can feel abstract otherwise.
Think back to May, when a report surfaced about 184 million compromised credentials. At the time, that felt enormous, right? A significant cybersecurity event.
Oh, definitely. We were talking about that one.
Yet this current 16 billion record exposure completely dwarfs it. It's not even in the same league.
Not even close.
Yeah.
And we've also had the infamous RockU 2024 leak, which astonishingly involved nearly 10 billion passwords.
10 billion.
Yeah, building on its predecessor, RockU 2021, which had over 8 billion. These are huge numbers themselves.
And then there's the supermassive mother of all breaches, or MOAB, that came to light in early 2024.
Ah, yes, MOAB. That was, what was it, 26 billion records.
26 billion records, or 13 terabytes of data. Just mind-boggling.
So while 16 billion is a monumental figure in its own right, it kind of signals this disturbing continuation of a trend, doesn't it?
It really does. Data exposures are not only becoming more frequent, but their sheer scale is just escalating at an alarming rate.
It's becoming the norm, almost, which is terrifying.
To give you a more tangible sense of just how vast 16 billion really is, let's consider this. If the global population currently stands at roughly 8 billion people,
Roughly, yeah.
then this data implies, on average, 2 exposed accounts for every single person on the planet.
2 accounts per person. Wow.
Think about that for a moment. What stands out to you when you hear a number like that?
Well, it immediately makes it personal, doesn't it? It's not them, it's potentially us, multiple times over.
For me, it immediately shifts the perspective. This isn't just about a few unlucky individuals becoming victims. It underscores a pervasive, systemic vulnerability impacting nearly everyone with an online presence. It highlights that no one is truly immune.
And this is a crucial point that bears repeating. It's vital to understand that this 16 billion figure does not stem from a single catastrophic breach of one specific company.
Right, that's important. It wasn't like one big bank got hacked.
Exactly. The Cyber News researchers who identified this vast collection have clarified that it's actually an aggregation of data from 30 exposed data sets.
30 different sets.
Yeah, Think of it less as a single enormous vault that was cracked and more like someone stumbling upon 30 different unsecured digital warehouses, each just overflowing with stolen information.
That's a good analogy. Unsecured warehouses.
And these individual data sets reportedly contain anywhere from tens of millions to over 3.5 billion records each, painting a picture of fragmented but, cumulatively immense exposure.
And what kind of digital treasure, or perhaps more accurately, what kind of digital poison are we talking about here? The sources confirm it's a terrifyingly diverse and chillingly comprehensive collection.
Yeah, poison is probably closer to the mark.
We're talking about credentials from practically any online service imaginable. From the biggest names like Apple, Facebook, and Google,
The ones you use every hour.
to more specialized platforms like GitHub for developers, Telegram for secure messaging, and even various government services.
And beyond that too, right? Social media, VPNs.
Oh, yeah. Social media platforms, VPNs, corporate systems, developer portals. Pretty much if you have an online account, the chances are high that some form of its credentials are in this enormous dump.
Scary thought.
A telling detail, which points to the origin of this data, is the consistent format of the compromised information. It's typically structured as a URL, followed by login details, and then the password.
URL, login, password. That structure is significant.
It is. This specific and uniform structure is a key indicator of how this data was collected, which is a fascinating and, frankly, unsettling story in itself.
Indeed. And diving deeper into the specifics, we've even seen certain large individual data sets highlighted within this 16 billion total. It really underscores its global reach and diverse targets.
Like what?
For instance, there's a massive batch of 3.5 billion records, most likely related to the Portuguese-speaking population.
3.5 billion, just for Portuguese speakers.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
Which immediately points to the global footprint of these threats. Another dataset is explicitly named after Telegram, containing a significant 60 million records.
Okay.
And yet another, notably large one, is linked to the Russian Federation with 455 million records.
So it's truly international.
Absolutely. These granular details reinforce how widespread and varied the compromised information truly is. It transcends geographical boundaries, hits different services, different demographics across the entire digital world. It's not just one sector or region. It's a truly global phenomenon.
So if this isn't one single breach, and it's this aggregation of data from, 30 different sources, how did this colossal amount of information end up exposed in the first place?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Or maybe the 16 billion credential question.
Yeah. The primary culprit, according to the sources, appears to be something called info sealers. Now, that term sounds pretty ominous.
And it absolutely lives up to its name, believe me.
I bet.
Info stealers are a particularly insidious form of malicious software, or malware, specifically designed to secretly infiltrate a user's computer and systematically steal sensitive data.
Okay.
And security researcher Bob Diachenko offers a critical clarification here. He states that this particular exposure isn't a result of one single grand hack.
Like we said, not one big breach.
Right. But rather reflects the scale and rise of info-stealer infections these days. He further notes that these different info-stealers data sets have been exposed publicly since the beginning of this year alone, often found within passwordless repositories left exposed inadvertently.
Wow. So this is an ongoing problem, finding these exposed data sets.
A huge ongoing problem, and it raises a very important question for listeners. Are you confident your system isn't currently hosting one of these malicious programs, silently siphoning off your digital life?
That's a chilling thought. So how exactly do these info stealers operate? You said it's not like the movies.
Right. No dramatic hacking sequences usually. Instead, info stealers employ a more patient, deceptive strategy. They often lie hidden within seemingly innocuous files or tempting downloads.
Like what kind of files?
Think about pirated software you might encounter online, maybe an infected PDF that looks legitimate, game modifications or mods that promise enhanced gameplay.
Oh yeah, game mods are huge.
Exactly. Or other types of malware disguised as something useful. A user, completely unaware, downloads and executes this malicious code.
Click, run, and boom.
Pretty much. Once it's on your system, it silently goes to work, exfiltrating, that's the technical term, for secretly stealing and transmitting a truly comprehensive range of data.
And when you say comprehensive, what exactly are we talking about? Just passwords?
Oh, much more than just passwords. According to insights from cybersecurity firm Hudson Rock, these info stealers don't just grab your passwords. They essentially exfiltrate everything,
Everything.
like highly sensitive information like your VPN credentials.
Okay, that's bad. Direct route into work networks sometimes.
Exactly. And authentication session cookies, which, this is key, can sometimes be used to bypass multi-factor authentication entirely.
Wow, bypass MFA, that's terrifying.
It is. They also snatch your email logins, access internal development tools if you're a developer, steal stored documents from your hard drive, record your entire browsing history,
My whole
your
history.
whole history, and even pilfer your autofill data from your browser. Addresses, credit cards sometimes.
Oh my God, imagine handing a criminal not just a single key, but a complete digital blueprint of your online habits, your entire network of access points, even your past activity.
That's the terrifying capability of these info stealers. They paint a detailed portrait of your digital life for attackers. It's incredibly invasive.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting and where there's been a crucial ongoing debate within the cybersecurity community. Is this data truly new and fresh, or is it simply recycled old breach data, maybe dressed up differently?
Right, the new versus recycled debate's a big one.
Cybernews researchers initially came out with a pretty bold claim asserting these aren't just old breaches being recycled, this is fresh, weaponizable intelligence at scale.
Which sounds incredibly alarming, right?
Yeah.
Fresh intelligence implies immediate, widespread danger.
Absolutely. That's a powerful statement, suggesting a whole new, immediate level of threat.
However, other prominent cybersecurity professionals, and certainly many comments from online forums, quickly offered a different perspective. Many argue that this could be what's colloquially termed a Frankenstein data set.
The Frankenstein data set, I like that.
Yeah, or simply a massive aggregation of many prior breaches. Anthony Spadafora, a cybersecurity expert from Tom's Guide, echoed this sentiment. He said, given that no brand or company is mentioned outright, this is an easy giveaway that this isn't a new breach or leak, but instead a collection-style one.
So he's saying the lack of a specific company name is a clue.
Exactly. His analysis suggests that cybercriminals are constantly taking data from various previous incidents, repackaging it, maybe adding some new stuff in, and making it easier to search through and weaponize, like a greatest hits compilation, but for stolen data.
Okay, so which interpretation is it? Because the distinction here is absolutely critical for understanding the true nature of the threat, isn't it?
It really is. And Bob Diachenko, the security researcher we mentioned earlier, offers a very important clarification that helps reconcile these two seemingly conflicting views.
What did he say?
He categorically states there was no centralized data breach at any of these companies, Apple, Google, Facebook.
Okay, so confirming. Apple, Google, Facebook themselves were not directly hacked. Their servers weren't breached.
Correct. That's the crucial point. It wasn't a direct compromise of their internal databases.
So where did the Apple and Google logins come from?
What Diachenko explains instead is that the credentials we've seen in InfoSealer logs contained login URLs to Apple, Facebook, and Google login pages.
Ah, okay. So the logs from the infected user machines had the URLs and the passwords the user typed in for those sites?
Precisely. These are user passwords for these services that were stolen from individual users' compromised devices by InfoStealers, not directly from the corporate databases of Apple, Google, or Facebook.
That's a subtle but fundamental nuance that many headlines might miss.
It's huge. It profoundly changes our understanding of the origin. It underscores that the vulnerability often lies with the individual user's device in vigilance, rather than a direct breach of a tech giant.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it means that while Cybernews stated there was no way to effectively compare the data between different data sets, and that overlapping records are definitely present.
Right, so lots of duplicates, presumably.
The sheer overwhelming volume still represents a massive, undeniable risk. In other words, it's impossible to tell how many people or accounts were actually exposed uniquely.
We just know it's a huge number,
Yeah.
even with overlap.
Exactly. But whether it's a completely fresh batch or a sophisticated repackaging of existing data, the core fact remains. 16 billion login credentials are now circulating in the hands of malicious actors, and that presents a monumental, ready-to-exploit threat.
Yeah, the sheer accessibility of this data for criminals is what makes it so dangerous, regardless of its ultimate provenance. It's all gathered together, easy to search.
There is what Cybernews described as a silver lining in this otherwise grim picture, if you can call it that.
A silver lining to 16 billion exposed credentials. I'm intrigued.
Well, they noted that all of the individual data sets were exposed only briefly. They were accessible long enough for researchers to uncover them, but not long enough to find who was controlling vast amounts of data.
Okay, so the bad guys might not have had indefinite access to these specific exposed repositories. That's something, I guess.
It is. So while it's still alarming, it could have potentially been even worse if they had remained exposed indefinitely.
True. But it also shines a spotlight on another critical underlying vulnerability, doesn't it? How did it get exposed in the first place?
Exactly. The technical nature of this brief exposure points to these data sets being temporarily accessible through unsecured Elasticsearch or object storage instances.
Ah, Elasticsearch and S3 buckets, or similar. The usual suspects for misconfigurations.
For those less familiar with the specifics, think of these as vast digital warehouses for data in the cloud. When they're unsecured or misconfigured, it's basically like leaving the warehouse door wide open, no lock, no security guard.
Anyone can just walk in and take stuff.
Pretty much. It allows anyone who simply stumbles upon them to walk right in and download enormous amounts of sensitive information without any real effort.
Yeah. And Darren Guccione, the CEO of Keeper Security, really emphasizes this broader point. He highlights just how easy it is for sensitive data to be unintentionally exposed online, even without an active, targeted hack or the direct involvement of info stealers.
Just accidents. Human error.
Often, yeah. It can happen simply due to errors in cloud configuration, human oversight, or maybe mismanaged back-end infrastructure. This particular aspect raises a very important question. If these brief exposures are happening,
Which they clearly are.
how many other treasure troves of exposed credentials are out there, sitting in unsecured cloud environments, just waiting to be found by someone with far less benevolent intentions than security researchers?
That's a terrifying thought. It points to a systemic fragility in how much of our digital data is stored and managed.
Absolutely. It's not just about the active attacks. It's about the passive vulnerabilities, too.
So we've discussed the staggering numbers, we've delved into the dark world of info stealers and cloud misconfigurations, but what does all of this truly mean for you, the listener, and your everyday online life? Why does this staggering figure of 16 billion exposed credentials actually matter to your personal security?
Yeah, let's bring it back to the individual impact.
The researchers behind this discovery weren't subtle about their warning. They declared this is not just a leak, it's a blueprint for mass exploitation.
A blueprint for mass exploitation. That statement is incredibly accurate, and it should resonate deeply. These leaked credentials are not just inert data. They are immediate, actionable tools for a wide array of devastating consequences for individuals.
Like what specifically?
We're talking about direct account takeover, where criminals gain unauthorized access to your online accounts, often before you even realize anything is wrong. From there, it rapidly escalates to identity theft.
Using your name, your details.
Exactly. Using your stolen credentials to impersonate you for financial gain, open new lines of credit in your name, or even commit other malicious acts. Financial fraud, like draining bank accounts, is an obvious risk.
And you mentioned blackmail earlier.
Yes, and with the depth of data info stealers collect, remember, browsing history, documents, there's even the chilling possibility of blackmail if highly sensitive or embarrassing information from compromised accounts is used against you.
That's deeply concerning.
Crucially, these credentials become ground zero for phishing attacks.
You mentioned ground zero for phishing attacks. Can you elaborate on that? Because it sounds like a much more sophisticated threat than the generic phishing emails we're used to seeing, the ones with bad grammar.
Oh, absolutely. Much more sophisticated. Traditional phishing often relies on generic mass-send emails, hoping someone takes the bait, right? The Nigerian prince emails of old.
Yeah, exactly.
But when criminals have this blueprint of 16 billion credentials, they can craft highly targeted phishing campaigns. Spear phishing, essentially.
So personalized attacks.
Highly personalized. Imagine getting an email that isn't generic but specific, using details only known from a breach, perhaps your exact login name for a particular service you know you use, maybe a reference to a recent transaction or a piece of personal information they gleaned.
That would be much harder to spot.
Incredibly difficult. These weaponized phishing attempts appear legitimate because they contain data that seems to confirm their authenticity. They exploit your trust and bypass your usual skepticism. This direct link between stolen credentials and hyper-personalized phishing is what makes this leak so dangerous on a day-to-day level.
And it's not just individuals who are at risk, right? These compromised credentials can also serve as the initial foothold for broader attacks.
Absolutely. Far more sophisticated cyber attacks against organizations often start with a compromised individual account. We're talking about things like ransomware intrusions.
Locking up entire company networks.
Exactly. Holding data hostage until ransom is paid. Or business email compromise, BEC attacks, where attackers impersonate executives to trick employees into transferring large sums of money.
The classic CEO fraud.
Right. So the individual compromise can easily cascade into corporate catastrophe. One weak link breaks the chain.
One of the single biggest amplifiers of risk in this entire scenario is something almost everyone does, or at least has done: password reuse.
Ah, yes. The cardinal sin of password security.
Former NSA cybersecurity expert Evan Dornbush issues a crucial, often overlooked warning that gets to the heart of the matter. He says, "It doesn't matter how long or complex your password is. When an attacker compromises the database that stores it, they have it."
That's a sobering thought. Even a super complex password isn't safe if the database itself is breached.
Which leads directly to the critical, universally applicable point he makes. It's so critical not to use the same password at multiple sites. If an attacker steals a password from one database and the individual has reused it elsewhere, then the attacker can gain access to those accounts as well.
And that's where the real danger lies. That's how one breach turns into 10, 20, or 100 compromised accounts for a single person. It's the domino effect.
That's precisely why this problem is so pervasive and so difficult to mitigate. We've become accustomed to the convenience of reusing passwords, maybe tweaking them slightly.
Adding a 1 or an exclamation mark at the end?
Exactly. But the statistics on this are frankly alarming. A NordPass survey reveals that a significant majority of users globally admit to this risky behavior. A staggering 62% of Americans.
Oh, nearly 2/3.
60% of Brits and 50% of Germans. Just think about that for a moment. If even one of your passwords is leaked from a single service, and these 16 billion credentials suggest that's highly likely for many people,
Probably inevitable at this point for most people online.
and you've reused it, that single leaked password could act as a master key, potentially unlocking dozens of your other online accounts. From social media to banking to shopping, it's an open invitation for a cascade of compromises across your entire digital life.
What's truly fascinating, or perhaps terrifying, here is how our common password practices compound this inherent vulnerability. The most prevalent password length currently used is only 8 to 10 characters.
Still, after all these years of advice.
Apparently so. And many of these still contain only lowercase letters and digits. This makes them highly vulnerable to brute force attacks once they're exposed. If a hacker gets the hash, they can crack these relatively easily.
So short and simple is still common.
Very common. While there's a small glimmer of hope, the percentage of users who now mix uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and symbols in their passwords has increased to 19%.
Okay, that's better than it was.
It's up from a mere 1% in 2022, which is a huge jump, relatively speaking. But it still leaves a vast number, over 80%, of passwords susceptible to being cracked once they're leaked if they follow older patterns.
So the sheer volume of exposed credentials combined with the prevalence of easily guessable and widely reused passwords.
It creates an absolutely perfect storm for attackers. It's like leaving your front door unlocked and also using the same key for your car in your office.
Adding to this grave picture are the far-reaching implications of these compromised credentials because they target widely used services, as highlighted by Darren Guccione of Keeper Security.
Right. These aren't just obscure forum logins from 10 years ago. Those are in there too, probably.
They include incredibly high-value targets, like your Apple ID, your Google account, your Facebook login. These are the central hubs of your digital identity.
The keys to the kingdom, basically.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, these major accounts often serve as literal gateways to your entire digital life. Ignas Valancius of NordPass issues a stark warning. If hackers manage to get their hands on your password for Google, Apple, or Facebook, stealing your money and identity may be easier than taking candy from a 3-year-old.
That's a vivid image. And it's particularly true if you rely on these services to store other passwords in your browser.
Which many people do for convenience.
Or if you haven't enabled multi-factor authentication, MFA, or ideally, the newer passkeys we'll talk about later. Access to just one of these high-value accounts can unchain a truly frightening amount of your personal and financial information, giving attackers a terrifyingly complete picture of you.
All of this brings us to a fundamental and increasingly heated debate within the cybersecurity world. Who is truly responsible for protecting our data? Is it us? Is it the companies? Both.
The shared responsibility question. It's a constant debate.
The traditional, long-standing view is that cybersecurity is not just a technical challenge, but a shared responsibility. It sounds perfectly reasonable on the surface, doesn't it? Both sides have a part to play.
Yeah, that's the standard line. This perspective is often articulated by experts like Javad Malik, lead security awareness advocate at KnowBe4. He suggests that organizations need to do their part in protecting users, and people need to remain vigilant and mindful of any attempts to steal login credentials.
So companies need secure systems, users need to be careful.
Exactly. And the advice that follows from this viewpoint is familiar to most of us. Choose strong and unique passwords and implement multi-factor authentication wherever possible. This framework places a significant, sometimes seemingly overwhelming onus on individual user behavior and vigilance.
But then you encounter a very different and quite provocative stance from figures like Paul Walsh, CEO at Medicert. He strongly disagrees with the concept of cybersecurity as a shared responsibility.
Oh, really? What's his take?
He doesn't hold back. He states quite emphatically, that's pure BS from security vendors who still don't know how to protect their customers from phishing attacks, and then blame people for not becoming security pros.
Wow. Okay, so he's putting the blame squarely back on the security providers and companies.
Pretty much. That's a pretty direct, no punches pulled counter-argument to what many in the industry consider standard practice.
Walsh's perspective immediately raises a very important question, though. How can users be expected to spot threats that their security providers cannot?
That's a fair point. If the security tools can't catch it.
How can the average user, who isn't a security expert, be expected to? He contends that user education isn't working and hasn't been effective in more than a decade.
Oof, that's a harsh assessment of security awareness training.
It is, but this sentiment, this deep frustration with the status quo, resonates powerfully in online forums and communities. You see comments on Reddit reflecting this exasperation. Things like, "For all the good it fucking does," or a weary, "I'm tired, boss."
Yeah, that "I'm tired, boss" one hits hard. The sense of fatigue.
Or the very relatable, almost cynical, "What is there to do anymore? All of my accounts have been in a leak at some point or another. I can change all my passwords, and then it'll happen again tomorrow."
It reflects a deep-seated weariness and skepticism from users who feel overwhelmed by the relentless barrage of breaches. It suggests that maybe the traditional approach to user education isn't sufficient or even fair, given the sophistication of modern threats.
It's like we're asking people to constantly be on high alert, to be amateur security analysts, just to use the internet safely.
And it's not just individual users expressing this frustration. Even Cyber News, the very researchers who uncovered this massive leak, weighed in on the larger question of accountability.
What do they say?
They acknowledged the user's burden, but pivoted to the responsibility of data custodians. They stated, maybe not users aren't solely responsible, but we certainly need to pressure companies holding our data to protect it properly.
Okay, shifting the focus.
They continued. They often don't, as we stumble upon treasure troves of accidentally unprotected data almost every day. So we're not exaggerating this. If anything, we aren't doing enough as journalists and users to hold those companies accountable by putting them in the spotlight.
So they're calling for more pressure on the companies themselves to lock down their data, including those accidental exposures we talked about.
Exactly. This really shifts the focus beyond just individual users and squarely onto the corporations.
What's truly fascinating here is how the conversation begins to shift from what you, the individual, must do to what companies should be doing when it comes to safeguarding our digital lives.
Yeah, the balance of responsibility.
There's a palpable, growing sentiment, powerfully reflected in one Reddit comment, that we need to start holding the data holders accountable. And I bet these leaks and hacks start getting a lot less frequent.
Impose real consequences, basically.
Right. The comment continues, now it only hurts whoever's PR if they get hacked, start making them fiscally responsible or criminally responsible, and they'll secure our info much better.
That highlights a rapidly growing desire for systemic change and stricter penalties for data custodians, moving beyond mere public relations damage to genuine financial or even legal responsibility. It's a call for a fundamental rebalancing of the cybersecurity burden.
It's a tough debate, with strong arguments on both sides. Users do have some responsibility, but maybe the scales have tipped too far in that direction.
While the debate around shared responsibility and corporate accountability continues, and it's a vital one, there are immediate, actionable steps you can take right now to protect yourself, regardless of who's ultimately to blame.
Absolutely. Let's get practical.
Given the sheer scale of this 16 billion password leak, the imperative to change your passwords is, without a doubt, at the very top of the list.
Priority number one.
If you have ever reused any of those credentials across more than one service, I would strongly, strongly recommend changing your password for those accounts immediately. There's no time to waste on this.
Don't put it off. Do it today. And when you do change them, don't just swap out a character or two or add a number at the end. That's not enough anymore.
Right. What should people do instead?
You need to create truly strong, complex, and most importantly, unique passwords for every important account. They should be a mix of uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols. The more random and distinct from any personal information, the better.
Like, don't use your dog's name or your birthday.
Definitely not.
Whoops.
And make them long. 12 characters is a good minimum, 15 or more is even better. You can use free tools like Password Monster's Password Strength Meter to evaluate just how effective and resilient your new password is.
That's helpful. What about this idea of fragmenting passwords?
Yeah, some cybersecurity experts advocate for that practice. It basically means creating entirely new, unrelated passwords for each major service. Don't base them on a common root word or pattern.
So, completely different passwords everywhere.
Ideally, yes. This ensures that even if one password is compromised in a breach, it doesn't provide a master key to your other online accounts. It contains the damage to a single service.
Okay, but creating and remembering dozens, maybe hundreds of unique, complex passwords, that sounds impossible for a normal person.
It is impossible for a normal person to do reliably, which leads us directly to a truly crucial tool for your digital safety in this increasingly perilous landscape: password managers.
Password managers. The solution everyone recommends, but maybe not everyone uses.
They really aren't just about convenience anymore. They are absolutely essential for robust password management in today's environment, especially in light of mega leaks like the one we're discussing.
How do they help, exactly?
Password managers truly are your digital fortress. Their core function is to generate incredibly long, random, and unique passwords for every single account you have online.
So you don't have to think them up.
Exactly. And you don't have to remember them either, except for one master password.
Yeah.
They then securely store these credentials, often utilizing sophisticated zero-knowledge encryption, meaning only you hold the decryption key, not even the company providing the service.
That sounds secure.
And for ease of use, they can autofill these complex passwords for you, which also helps protect against phishing because you're not typing the password into a potentially fake site. Tools like Bitwarden or Dashlane are excellent, reputable examples, with many free or low-cost options available.
We often hear concerns from users, though, like, what if I lose the password manager account or forget its master password?
That's a valid fear, and it's why that single master password for the manager itself needs to be incredibly strong, unique, and memorable to you, but not guessable by others. You absolutely cannot lose it. Write it down safely and store it offline if you need to.
What about workplaces that don't allow them? Or concerns about the managers themselves getting hacked, like the LastPass incident?
The work restriction is a tough one, though the move towards passkeys might help there. As for security incidents like LastPass, they underscore the absolute importance of a strong master password. Even when the encrypted vault was stolen, users with strong master passwords were much better protected because the encryption is so hard to crack. Properly designed password managers, using client-side hashing and zero-knowledge encryption, are still considered pretty damn airtight, provided you maintain an uncompromisable master password for your vault.
Okay, so password managers are a key. What's the next layer?
Beyond strong, unique passwords managed by a password manager, enabling multi-factor authentication, or MFA, often referred to as two-factor authentication, or 2FA, is a critical barrier against account takeover.
That second check, right? The code from your phone or app.
Exactly. It adds an absolutely essential second layer of security beyond just your password, making it significantly harder for attackers to gain access even if they have your password.
So even if my password leaks, MFA can save me.
It's your best defense in that scenario. It's an absolutely non-negotiable step for any account that offers it. This second factor means that even if a threat actor somehow obtains your password, they still won't be able to easily access your online accounts because a second form of authentication will need to be approved by you.
Are all types of MFA equally good?
Not quite. There are different types with varying levels of security. Authenticator apps, like Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, or Authy, are generally far more secure than SMS-based 2FA.
Why is SMS less secure?
We'll get to that. For the highest level of protection, physical USB keys, such as the YubiKey, are considered the highest assurance authentication method and are much more secure than SMS. Neil McConaughey from Yubico strongly emphasizes that users should opt for the highest assurance authentication method to ensure their data is fully protected and not at risk.
So physical keys are top tier, authenticator apps are great, and SMS.
And on that note, a critical warning about SMS-based 2FA. It's often the easiest option to set up, but it's also the most vulnerable.
Okay, why is SMS so bad?
You absolutely should not use SMS as your 2FA method if you have any other option available. The biggest risk is something called a SIM swap attack.
SIM swap, what's that?
It's a cunning trick where a criminal convinces your phone company through social engineering or sometimes bribing an employee to transfer your existing phone number to a new SIM card that they control.
So they basically steal your phone number.
Effectively, yes. This reroutes all your texts and calls, including those crucial 2FA codes, straight into their hands, completely bypassing that layer of security. You could be completely locked out of your accounts. If anyone SIM swaps you, you are, for all intents and purposes, completely screwed.
That sounds devastating. What if SMS is the only option a site offers?
Unfortunately, for some older sites, that might be the case. In those specific situations, enable a PIN on your mobile phone account required for any changes, including porting your number. It adds a hurdle for the attackers. But for all other accounts, especially important ones like banks, insurance, investments, medical portals, and government services, implement strong MFA with an authenticator app or physical key wherever possible. Ditch SMS 2FA whenever you can.
Okay, that's clear advice. Ditch SMS 2FA, use apps or keys. What else can people check?
Another incredibly invaluable tool to check if you personally have been caught up in a breach, like this 16 billion credential dump or countless others, is the website havebeenpwned.com.
Have I Been Pwned? Yeah, I use that one. It's run by Troy Hunt, a security researcher.
It's an indispensable, free, and legitimate service. It collates data from known data breaches and allows you to quickly check if your email addresses or any of your passwords have been exposed in any of those publicly known incidents.
How does it work?
You simply plug in your email address, and it will tell you if it's been compromised and in which specific breach. It's a quick, easy way to get a baseline assessment of your exposure. It takes seconds.
And it can check passwords too, right? Without you sending your actual password.
Yes, it has a feature where you can check if a password has appeared in breaches without actually revealing the password itself using a cryptographic technique. I also highly recommend using their Notify Me service for ongoing alerts.
Oh yeah, that's useful.
You don't have to constantly check manually. They'll send you an email if your information appears in a new breach they add to their database. It's proactive.
And finally, a simple yet surprisingly effective step that often gets overlooked. Regularly auditing and deleting your unused accounts.
Digital spring cleaning. This is a smart, proactive move. Every old, forgotten online account you have.
That forum you joined in 2008.
Exactly. Or an old shopping site you no longer use represents an unnecessary risk. It's a potential vulnerability, a potential entry point for attackers using old credentials that you don't even need open.
So, less surface area for attack.
Precisely. If you're not actively using an account, especially if it might contain personal data or old payment information, close it down. Reduce your attack surface wherever possible. It takes a bit of time, but it's worth it.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the problems with passwords reuse, weak ones, breaches. Given that passwords are clearly proving to be such a weak link in our digital security, what's the future of online login looking like?
Well, the industry is making a very clear, very strong shift towards embracing what are called passkeys for a truly passwordless world.
Passkeys, we've heard that term more and more. What are they exactly?
Passkeys are indeed designed to replace passwords entirely, offering a significantly more secure and arguably more convenient method of authentication. They leverage biometric authentication directly via a trusted device you already own and use regularly, like your smartphone or computer.
So instead of typing a password
that can be stolen, guessed, or phished, you simply use a physical certification, like your fingerprint, a facial scan, or even just the pattern lock on your device to approve the login.
And how does that make them more secure?
The magic is that because they're intrinsically linked and stored on your device, they cannot be guessed, cracked, or shared across multiple sites in a way that compromises them globally like passwords can. If one site gets breached, your passkey for other sites isn't affected.
That sounds like a monumental leap forward in terms of security. But how exactly does the underlying technology work to make them so much more secure than traditional passwords? Can we get slightly technical?
Sure, it all comes down to public key cryptography, which is a cornerstone of modern security. With a passkey, when you create an account on a website or app,
Yeah.
your device generates a unique pair of cryptographic keys, a public key and a private key. The website receives and stores only your public key. There's a reason it's called public. It's designed to be openly shared, knowing it doesn't compromise your security.
Okay, the site gets the public key. Where's the private key?
You, the user, hold the private key securely on your trusted device in the secure enclave or equivalent hardware. It never leaves your device. To sign in, your device uses your private key to cryptographically sign a challenge sent by the website. The website then verifies this signature using your public key.
So the private key never gets transmitted.
Never. This process makes them incredibly resistant to phishing, because there's no secret password for a criminal to trick you into revealing. There's no shared secret for a criminal to intercept during login. Cracking a passkey is the equivalent of breaking modern encryption standards like AES, which is fundamentally impractical with current computing power.
So orders of magnitude more secure than any password, no matter how complex.
Exactly. They're designed to be phishing-resistant and secure against server-side breaches.
It's truly exciting to see major tech companies getting squarely on board with this industry shift, signifying a major turning point. Google, for instance.
Yeah, Google's been pushing hard.
They've been actively recommending that users upgrade their Gmail account security by entirely moving away from older sign-in methods and enthusiastically adopting passkeys, explicitly recognizing their automatic security and inherent protection against sophisticated scams.
And Facebook or Meta is joining in too, right?
Yeah, even more recently, Facebook announced they will soon be rolling out passkey logins for its users, promising to make it both easier and more secure to sign into its services across Facebook, Messenger, and MetaPay.
That's huge, given their user base.
And of course, industry giants like Apple and Microsoft have been early adopters and strong advocates, pushing hard towards this passwordless future for quite some time now. It feels like there's real momentum.
And that widespread industry adoption is truly the game changer here. Rue Islam, who is the co-chair of the FIDO Alliance, that's the crucial industry body driving the passkey standard, and also a security expert at Dashlane.
Dashlane, the password manager.
Right. He states it very clearly. Dashlane was the first credential manager to launch passkey support. And he says, it's very exciting to see the tech industry following suit. His strong conviction is that passkeys aren't a nice to have. They're essential to protecting users from the exact kind of threats we're discussing today.
Essential, not just nice.
Essential. From a user readiness perspective, while there's always natural resistance to change when new technology emerges, Islam points out that most users are ready to ditch passwords and rely on factors they already know and use, such as face or fingerprint recognition. It's often easier than remembering and typing complex passwords.
What's the future outlook then? How quickly will this happen?
The future outlook is incredibly optimistic. There are expectations for passkeys to be used by the global majority of Internet users within just 3 years.
3 years, that's fast.
It is ambitious, but the benefits are so clear. This isn't a niche technology. It's poised to become the future of authentication.
That sounds incredibly promising, but one concern I've heard from users, especially on platforms like Reddit, is the idea of ecosystem lock-in. If your passkeys are tied to a specific device or platform, like Apple's ecosystem, what happens if you decide to switch to an Android phone, for example? Are you stuck?
That's a very valid and important concern, and it's something the industry is keenly aware of and actively addressing. If passkeys lock you into one company's garden, adoption will stall.
So what's being done?
Well, the FIDO standard is designed for interoperability, and companies are implementing solutions. Apple, for instance, made a significant announcement at their Worldwide Developers Conference, WWDC, that they will implement passkey exporting.
Exporting passkeys, how does that work?
The details are still emerging, but the goal is to directly tackle the issue of transferability between different ecosystems, ensuring users have control over their authentication methods even if they switch devices or operating systems. Passkey syncing via cloud services like iCloud Keychain or Google Password Manager also helps bridge devices within an ecosystem. The aim is security without sacrificing user freedom or creating lock-in.
So the technology is rapidly evolving to make this transition smoother and more user-friendly.
Exactly. Mitigating those initial concerns is crucial for widespread adoption. For now, you can often continue to use passwords if you prefer, as companies are slowly rolling out passkey support alongside existing methods. But the clear direction of travel is towards a more secure, passwordless future.
Okay, so passkeys are the future, but for now, and even alongside passkeys, what broader cybersecurity measures should we be thinking about for long-term protection, especially in a world where data leaks seem almost inevitable?
Right, defense in depth is still key. One crucial tool mentioned in the sources is dark web monitoring.
How does that help?
Dark web monitoring tools can be extremely valuable as part of a multi-layered security strategy. They continuously scan the dark corners of the internet marketplaces, forums where stolen credentials and personal data are bought and sold.
So they look for my data.
Exactly. If your email address, password hashes, credit card numbers, or other personal information appears on the dark web, these services will alert you. This allows you to proactively update your logins, change passwords, especially if you've reused them, and take other protective measures before serious damage occurs. Darren Guccione, the CEO of Keeper Security, specifically recommends investing in these tools as an essential component of your overall security strategy, giving you an early warning system against potential identity theft.
Another powerful and surprisingly simple defense against identity theft that is often overlooked is a credit freeze. I've personally heard people say it's one of the easiest things they've ever done online with the largest implications and value added for their peace of mind.
It truly is. A credit freeze is arguably the single most effective primary defense against someone opening new fraudulent accounts in your name.
How does it work? What does it actually do?
What it does is restrict access to your credit report. This means that creditors, banks, credit card companies, lenders cannot pull your credit file to approve new applications for credit. If they can't see your report, they generally won't open a new account. It essentially locks down your credit profile from unauthorized access.
So it stops fraudsters opening new cards or loans.
Precisely. To do it, you simply contact all three major credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, either online or by phone. In the U.S., it's free to place and lift a freeze. The process is straightforward.
What if I need to apply for credit? Is it a hassle?
It's easy to temporarily lift the freeze, often called thawing it, for a specific creditor or a set period when you need to apply for a loan or open a new account yourself. Then you can refreeze it. The sentiment from Reddit users on this is overwhelmingly clear. Just freeze your credit, then you have nothing to fear. Many users express deep frustration that credit monitoring isn't automatically free for everyone, and credit isn't locked by default, given the pervasive nature of breaches.
And on that note, it's worth mentioning a crucial detail about those free credit monitoring offers you often get from companies after a breach has occurred. Many people accept them without fully understanding the implications.
This is an incredibly important point that many people overlook, often buried in the fine print, and it frequently comes up in legal discussions around data breaches. It's vital to understand that agreeing to the free credit monitoring offer from the company that leaked your data often means you agree to forfeit your rights and options to sue or take part in a class action lawsuit or any other future legal actions related to that specific breach.
So you trade your right to sue for the free monitoring.
Essentially, yes. It's a trade-off. Some Reddit users explicitly stated they definitely took the money in settlements over the free monitoring, understanding this crucial trade-off. So if you ever find yourself in that unfortunate situation, be aware of that choice. Read the terms carefully.
Good advice. Beyond freezes and monitoring, what about comprehensive identity theft services?
If you haven't signed up for a comprehensive identity theft protection service, now might be a very good time to look into them. They offer broader monitoring, alerts, and often include insurance and recovery assistance if the worst happens. It's another potential layer of protection.
Okay, shifting gears slightly. Beyond specific tools, what about general digital hygiene and best practices that can help protect us in the long run against things like those info stealers we talked about?
Absolutely critical. Maintaining vigilant digital hygiene is paramount. First, keeping all your operating systems, whether it's Windows, macOS, iOS, or Android, and all your software, especially browsers and plugins, up to date with the latest security patches is absolutely crucial.
Why are updates so important?
These updates often include critical fixes for vulnerabilities that info stealers and other types of malware actively exploit. If your software isn't patched, you're leaving open doors that attackers know how to walk through. Automate updates wherever possible.
What else? Antivirus.
Secondly, yes, using reputable antivirus or endpoint security software is highly advisable. Modern security programs are designed to detect and prevent malware. including these insidious info stealers, often using behavioral analysis as well as signatures. Many of the best security suites now come bundled with other tools, like a VPN, sometimes a password manager, and a secure browser, offering a more holistic defense.
You mentioned VPNs. Are they helpful against this sort of thing?
Yes, using a virtual private network, VPN, is also strongly recommended, especially when you're on public Wi-Fi. A VPN encrypts your internet traffic and masks your real IP address, making it significantly harder for threat actors on the same network to snoop on your data or track you down online. It adds a layer of privacy and security.
And finally, what about that old school vigilance against phishing and online fraud? It seems more important than ever now that these attacks can be weaponized with details from these massive leaks, like you said earlier.
Indeed, it really is. The fundamental rules remain absolutely essential, perhaps even more so now. Always avoid clicking on unexpected links, never download attachments from unknown or unverified senders, and be extremely wary of suspicious offers, urgent requests for information, or anything that just feels off.
Trust your gut.
Absolutely. Hackers are becoming incredibly sophisticated, setting up fake login pages that look identical to legitimate ones, all designed to steal your credentials, credit card data, and other sensitive info. Crucially, if you receive something that appears to be from someone you do know, a friend, a colleague, your boss, but it's unexpected or seems slightly unusual.
Like asking for gift cards.
Exactly. Verify it through an independent method. Don't just reply to the email. Make a quick phone call to the sender using a known number, send them a message on a different platform, or verify it through another secure channel you trust. Don't use the contact info in the suspicious message.
That raises an important question. Are you confident you can spot a sophisticated phishing scam when they become weaponized with details specifically from these kinds of leaks? It's far harder than it used to be.
It really is. It requires constant vigilance. Maybe consider building a periodic security audit into your routine.
Like a checkup.
Yeah, perhaps aligning it with the solstices or equinoxes, or just twice a year. A regular rhythm to change passwords on your most important accounts, review your security settings, check for MFA everywhere, clean out old apps and accounts, and just generally review all your security practices.
That's practical advice, a regular security checkup. So what does all of this mean? We've taken a deep dive into this staggering 16 billion password leak, separating the facts from the, sometimes sensational headlines. Cut through that noise. And gaining a clearer understanding of the insidious role of info stealers and the pervasive danger of password reuse. We've explored the nuanced and often contentious views on shared responsibility in cybersecurity.
That ongoing debate.
And crucially, we've hopefully armed you with immediate and long-term actions you can take. Adopting password managers, enabling strong multi-factor authentication, especially non-SMS, embracing the future with passkeys, and leveraging powerful defenses like credit freezes and general vigilance.
While the sheer scale and frequency of these breaches can feel overwhelmingly disheartening, maybe even numbing at times, remember, you are your best defense in many ways. Taking these deliberate proactive steps gives you significant control over your digital security, even in a world of constant evolving threats.
It's about empowering yourself, right, moving beyond mere reaction to active protection.
Exactly. You can't stop the breaches entirely, perhaps, but you can dramatically reduce their impact on you.
If this deep dive has shown us anything, it's that in our hyper-connected world, personal data is not just a commodity. It's the new frontier for both incredible innovation and relentless exploitation. It's a fundamental societal challenge that truly affects every one of us with an online presence.
It really is woven into the fabric of modern life now.
So as you integrate these protective measures into your digital life, consider this provocative thought. If data breaches of this magnitude are becoming, as some sources suggest, almost mundane and expected,
Which is a depressing thought in itself.
what is the collective responsibility we have as users and as a society to pressure the companies holding our data to protect it properly? Not just for our individual safety, but for the very fabric of our digital trust.
How do we shift the needle on corporate accountability?
Exactly. How do we move beyond simply reacting to leaks, cleaning up the mess afterwards, to proactively building a more secure digital world where privacy and security are the default, not just an afterthought or a premium feature?
The solutions aren't merely technical, are they? They demand a fundamental shift in accountability, in incentives, in regulation perhaps, and in trust across our entire digital ecosystem. Something big needs to change.
Food for thought as we all navigate this complex digital age.